Okay, greetings once again, and it appears that you have stumbled into the Comfortable Couch Show here on YouTube, also on Spotify and Apple. And my name is Mark Underwood, and I am a cognitive behavioral therapist, and this is part 3 of the two-headed coin of codependence. And let me review the first 2. If you haven't heard them, you probably have to go back and listen to them, but the third one's not going to make a lot of sense. But just for the purpose of review, the first side of the coin is when you take responsibility for someone else's values or beliefs, actions, lifestyle choices, likes and dislikes, whatever it is. And this is created in childhood because children are narcissistic. They do not understand the adult world. And so a child would say, my mother was distant because I was unlovable. That isn't a reflection of her, because I couldn't possibly understand why she would be that way. I know it must be me. It must be me. I'm going to take that on me. I'm going to take that responsibility and say, however I'm treated is a reflection of me, because that's all I know, is that it has to be me. So that's the first side of the coin. And as we talked about, the second side of the coin is, well, that's pretty terrible. And I'm going to spend a lot of time then, if it's me and it's not my mother. I mean, how am I going to be at, 8 or 9 to accept that I just got a bad draw on the mother? I drew a bad card when it came to having a mother. She's just not capable of giving me any nurturing or anything. Well, that's not good. But wait, there's hope. The coin flips over and it's like, well, if it's my fault she's that way, if it's a reflection of my worth, then I at least have some control. And I can change her, because it's not really her that's acting that way. It's me making her act that way. So there's hope. So it's the first head of the side of the coin. The heads is bad. That's a terrible thing. I'm feeling terrible about myself because I'm being neglected or abused or whatever it is. But then when the coin flips over, wait a minute. I can change this if I just figure out the right thing to do, right? And adults do this all the time. Somebody will say, well, I had somebody not too long ago tell me, it's not my spouse's fault that they have been promiscuous and had affair after affair after affair and stolen money from me and hid money and have been doing all kinds of crazy things behind my back. I mean, what choice did they have? I'm emotionally unavailable. Zing. Well, then that person can say, well, if I just could figure out how to be emotionally available, they wouldn't cheat anymore. They'd have their needs met and they wouldn't cheat. So these are the two-headed coin. There's the coin right there. You're that way because of me, but that gives me hope because then I can change you. See it all the time. So let's talk about the hard part of this, which is, what do you do with this coin when it's been in your pocket for years? When this is the way you've had your relationships. You've taken responsibility for other people since you were a child. You just have. It's all you've known. It's a childhood habit. You never broke it. Nobody ever helped you break it. You don't know what to do with it. And what would an experienced cognitive behavioral therapist, a psychotherapist who treats anxiety and depression, do when someone has had this coin in their pocket for a long, long time and wants to get rid of it? Well, I've got 3 steps that I would take with my clients who want to rid themselves of the coin of codependence, who want to get rid of it for good. Now, the first step would probably be accomplished by listening to the first 2 episodes of this 3-part series, because you have to clearly see and understand both sides of the coin and see how this codependent view of relationships comes through a very natural childhood style of interpretation that's narcissistic by nature and that all of us have necessarily had. It's a normal coping mechanism created to deal with treatment from others that we don't like. And to also see and understand that it's pretty common. Why this is almost, it's an epidemic. I mean, I hear it all the time. I'm going to tell you, I have yet to meet one, maybe one. People come into my office all the time who are victims of infidelity. I'm not sure. I think I had somebody not too long ago who broke the mold. But almost always, that person comes into me and says, my spouse cheated on me, or my boyfriend, girlfriend, fiance, whoever, and it must be a reflection of me. It must be my fault. It's on me. I guess I didn't meet their needs. There it is. They acted that way because of me. Now, sometimes they'll say, well, maybe I can recapture this. If I can just figure out how to meet their need or make them happy, then they won't cheat. Get to that. It's also part of public policy. I keep remembering one of the stupidest things I ever heard of, which was there was I can't remember if it was a borough in New York City or maybe it's the city itself, probably about 10 years ago, wanted to pass a law banning 44-ounce big gulp sodas to be sold in convenience stores. Because by God, they were concerned, the city or whoever it was concerned that people were drinking too much sugar and we've got to stop them. Why, we can. And it was just the stupidest thing. And I would talk about it in sessions and I would go, well, why is this a bad idea? And then some people would talk about the morality of it or the whatever. And other people would go, because it's dumb. All you do is just take 2 32-ounce sodas out to your car and swig them. They can't stop you from doing that. Exactly. But it was a very codependent law being passed, right? You're not going to be able to stop people from drinking sugar sodas. All right. So step 1 would be understanding very clearly that the 2 parts that lead you up to now are, I have taken responsibility for how people have treated me and assumed that it's never them and it's always me. I'm taking it all on me. It's all a reflection of me. And therefore I have a responsibility or the ability to change it. And again, I'll give you another example. I've worked with, I don't know how many, I've done some groups where I've had a room full of adults in their 30s, 40s, and 50s who still look at whatever they didn't get in childhood as some personal reflection negatively on themselves. And they're still chasing their parents' approval and believing they can get it. And believing if they just try hard enough, if they just work hard enough, if they just are persistent and suck up to that parent and just love up on them and just beg them subtly they'll get it. The dad will quit drinking. He's been an alcoholic for 45 years. Oh no, if I just show him I'm a good daughter, a good son, he'll become who I, right? So after you've accepted step 1 and step 2 here, the 2 sides of the coin, then we're ready to make some headway. So here's the next step, number 2 in this of the 3, is correcting the distorted belief. The belief system that says it's never them and it's always me is corrected by accepting the individuality of others and giving up our ability to control them, our belief that we can control them, or define or transform their values, beliefs, lifestyles, or habits, likes or dislikes. Now, here's what I do. Here's how I work with this in a session. I'll say, okay, we're going to talk about the 3 suitcase principle. Okay? I used to be in the restaurant business and we'd go on conferences. I tell the story in my book. We'd go on these conferences and you'd have guys flying in from around the country, going to Myrtle Beach or Atlanta or Jacksonville, wherever. Usually the conferences were in somewhere warm with the company I was with, that franchise with. And you'd have these guys away from their wives, girlfriends, or fiancés. It was usually about 90% male, 95, almost always. If it was a husband and wife that owned the restaurant, the wife would stay back and run it, the husband would go to the business. I'm not saying that's right. I'm just saying 25 years ago, that's what happened. So you'd get these guys turned loose, going into these expensive hotels, and they're away. And I'll tell my client, I'll go, there's 3 kinds of suitcases that get dropped in a room. There's 3 guys that drop those suitcases. Here's the first guy. He checks in at the counter. He says, hey to Linda, gets his room key. He's going to 323. He walks past the fountain, the gift store, gets on the glass elevator, goes up 3rd floor, swipes his room card into the slot, gets the buzzer, hits the door, latch, goes in, pulls the windows apart, looks out, sets his suitcase down and says, I'm going to be alone for a week. And I've got a girlfriend, wife, or fiance at home. Man, I can't wait to get down to the bar. I'm going to look for some pretty girls. And if I can get some action going, if I can have sex with one of them, it's on. The party is on. It's hunting season. I'm ready to go. That's suitcase number 1. Suitcase guy number 2. He checks in. Linda's still working. He gets his room key to 1104. He gets past, throws a coin in the fountain, looks at the gift store, maybe goes in and gets a Diet Coke. He drags his suitcase up to 1104, gets off, puts his key in, goes into the room, sets his suitcase down. And he says to himself, well, I don't know. Well, there's a lot of pretty girls out there and I really want to have sex with them. I got a sex drive that's pretty strong, but I got a wife, girlfriend, or fiance at home and I don't want to disrespect her or disrespect myself. I hope I can get through this week. I hope I can get through this week and not do anything I'm going to regret. I'm going to try. That's guy number 2. Guy number 3, suitcase guy number 3. He checks in. Now it's past. Linda's gone, and it's Marvin. Marvin says, hey, how are you doing? He checks in, gets his key card. He goes to the gift shop, buys a protein bar, goes up the elevator, looks out the glass elevator, goes to floor 6. He's in 629. He goes to 629. He swipes his key card. He goes in, drops suitcase down. He says, I don't know what's going to happen this week, but I know one thing that won't happen. I'm not going to be cheating on my wife, girlfriend, or fiance because that ain't who I am. I don't want to live that way. I don't want the guilt, and I'm going to act with character. Nobody ever objects to my analogy of the 3 suitcases. They go, yeah, that's probably right. That's the 3 options. I can't think of another option. There people probably bleed between 1, 2, and 3. And I go, okay, well, do you think that those men made their choice about what to do when they dropped their suitcase because of the quality of woman they had at home? And they'll go, what do you mean? I go, well, the first guy, the reason he's so willing to throw his suitcase down and screw around the first chance he gets, he must have a nagging, unpleasant, unkempt, overweight or underweight, not good looking, unhealthy, miserable woman at home, right? And they'll go, well, no. I'll go, whoa, wait. So, no? Well, what about guy number 2? He must have a woman at home. That's why he's acting that way. No. Number 3, well, the reason he's a 3 isn't because of him. It's because he's got one heck of a woman at home, right? And they go, well, no, I don't think so. I go, okay, wait a minute. Because now here we're faced with the coin, right? Are these guys doing what they're doing? It could be women. I've been on these conferences with women and they had the same, some of them did the right thing. Some of them tried to do the right thing and some of them were primed to do the wrong thing. We're discussing human nature. Do people do what they do because that's who they are or because of they are controlled by and responding solely to the value of someone else that will make them do what they do when they drop the suitcase? Just to solidify this, I tell a story. It's one of my favorite stories. I've been beating this guy up for almost 30 years. Almost 30 years. Went to a conference. And I drove to it. And I had a 68 Camaro convertible, Marina Blue 327. I had not had it body worked on it, so it had kind of a crappy Mako paint job. If you don't know what a Mako paint job is, it was a pretty amateur paint job on it. But I had a car. Nobody else had a car. So this guy, fairly young guy, probably 30, looked like he was Texan. Looked like he had some. He was a nice looking guy, well spoken, dressed well. Asked me, he said, "Listen, man, you got a car. I'll buy dinner and to compensate you for driving. If you drive, we'll get some food." I said, "Okay." So we get in the car, and being as that I was trained as a therapist, even though I wasn't practicing then, I was in the restaurant business, people would talk to me. So this guy within 5 minutes is telling me his life story, which is okay. I'm not mad about that. That isn't why he gets whacked like a piñata regularly. He breaks out and tells me the story. Man, I lost my job. I was in the oil business. I worked on some kind of rig. He had a degree, and I think his deal was he worked in like shipping and receiving. He was a manager of the equipment that came on and the supplies that came on. But the oil business went south. I think he was living in Corpus at the time, from what I remember, from what he told me about 30 years ago, at least 25. And he said, "Man, I lost my job. Before I got in the restaurant business and worked my way up to this position, and got to be an owner, man, I had a rough time. I had a rough 9 months. I was building decks and hauling trash and painting because I had to have an income. I couldn't find a job. I was too overqualified for, some stuff, and the oil business was done. And my wife, God, I love her. You already know where this is going, probably. I mean, she was loyal to me. She understood. She knew I was trying. And he goes, "Man, my wife, I love my wife. I pray to God every night about my wife, thanking God for her. Show me a picture of her." Well, let me tell you, his prayers were well spoken. She was a very beautiful girl next door, blonde, very stylish, nice looking, sweet. He goes, "Oh man, she's great with my kids. She doesn't have any bad habits. She don't smoke. She doesn't drink. She doesn't even really like to cuss. And she's loyal. I don't have to worry about her, man. She's loyal. I'm blessed." Well, cool story, bro. So far, no problem. I was like, "Oh, it's got a happy story. Great, great, great." So we go eat. We get back to the lodging, the hotel, about 7 probably. Later on. So I see this guy during the week. A bunch of these guys, they used to want me to go drinking. Well, I'm not the guy to go drinking. I don't drink. But they said, "Man, you got to come out to this karaoke bar. It's the greatest time ever." I mean, the greatest time ever. I mean, we've had more fun than we've ever had in our life. I mean, they made it sound like they were at a virtual amusement park on, a high volume. Finally, they kept nagging me. I said, "Okay, look, I'll meet you guys out there." So I go out there. I drive my Camaro out there and I park on this gravel driveway of this bar outside the resort city. I think it was Myrtle Beach. And I go in and they've got this L-shaped bar, but it's not a bar like you'd go and walk in and get drinks. It's like a bar top that you sit behind and watch the karaoke. And then there's a bunch of tables in the middle of the floor, down below a little bit. And I see that guy there, my guy who loves his wife, and he's with a crowd of people, and, they're all hanging out. And there were some people that worked in the local restaurant of the chain we were involved with. And my guys are, I sit down, guy, and he's, I get my Diet Pepsi and my chicken wings. And this guy next to me's kind of got this funny look on his face. I know he's looking at something. He's watching this guy. I go, "That's something about it." I just noticed. So anyways, our hero of the story, he decides at some point he's had a few beers. He's looking like he's got bubbles kind of above his head, when somebody's had a few too many. He goes up and requests a song. And I see this little girl, this blonde girl. And let me tell you, I'm going to sound awful, but I have to tell it this way for the story. If you wanted a woman, to be in a movie and stand next to The Rock and not to detract from the scene or be remembered and not be totally nondescript and anonymous, this would be the girl. She wasn't ugly. She wasn't pretty. She didn't have she wasn't grossly overweight. She wasn't in shape. She was a non-entity. You would have called her a flat 5. Sorry, it sounds insensitive, but I'm comparing this woman to his wife. And she gets excited. You can see she's talking to people. Hey, he's gonna sing a song. And this guy goes up and requests Garth Brooks' Shameless. And the guy next to me is like, he's smiling, he's kind of laughing. And I go, what? I said that to him, and he goes, man, he's been sleeping with that girl since the second night he was here. Oh, really? So he's up there warbling, this terrible rendition of Garth Brooks. And this girl is sitting right in front of him on the stage, and she's got her hands in like prayer position. And she's kind of swaying side to side like this is the most romantic moment of her life. And this guy next to me it's like the hand of God. He reached over, grabbed my shoulder, and pulled me in. He goes, Mark, her kids are already calling him daddy. Zing. So I'm like, oh, okay. So I leave, and the guy says, well, yeah, good to see you, Mark. Hey, good to see you, Kane. Yeah, good to see you, buddy, right? No shame, right? Next day, I walk up to him. We're getting ready for the last day of the conference. I think we're doing legals that day. And I said, man, I saw you at the karaoke bar last night, having a good time with your girlfriend. He goes, oh, yeah, we had a great time. He had forgotten that he had probably told me how much he loved his wife. Or he didn't care. And I said, hey, listen, let me ask a question. Because I was that guy then. I would have just said anything I felt like saying if I thought somebody was a D-bag, a douchebag. I said, why would you tell me how much you loved your wife and how you prayed every night and thanks for her when you're screwing around with this local skeezer kind of chick? I'm sure this wasn't her first rodeo with the guys that came into these conferences. And he looked at me with shock, right? He looked at me with shock. He goes, well, what do you mean? I go, yeah, why tell me? If you want to screw out on your wife, I feel sorry for her, but why work me? Why work me and tell me a bunch of BS? And the guy said the most amazing thing. He goes, I don't understand. What did you expect me to do? Go a week without? Meaning without sex. I said, I did. I walked away from him. The guy followed me around like a puppy. Like trying to apologize. Man, I don't want you to be mad at me. I ain't mad at you. I'll never see you again. I doubt. I never did. Never saw the guy again. I was like, I'm okay. That's who you are, and you're okay being that guy. I feel sorry for your wife. So what I'm saying here is that accepting that you don't have any control over what somebody else does with their suitcase when they go to a hotel over their fidelity is breaking the spell. It's breaking the spell of codependence for you to say, hey, listen, my wife or my husband or my boyfriend or girlfriend or my mother, whoever you're talking about, they don't act the way they do because of me. Like overall, no, they have their own values and their own beliefs. It's not me. That's step number 2. Step 1 is reviewing the two-headed coin. Step 2 is saying, I'm accepting in theory that I am not responsible for how other people act as far as their values and their emotions. Because, hey, listen, you could be a lousy wife or a lousy husband or boyfriend, lousy fiance, lousy girlfriend. That doesn't make somebody cheat. I've had partners, dating partners. I had a wife, first wife. Hey, they didn't cause me to not cheat or cheat. They didn't have control. I did. Nobody has that control. Now, they could make it me more interested in getting away from them or make it more tempting maybe, but you still pull the trigger. I don't care how they treat you at the bank. They're not going to make you break in the safe, steal 150 grand and try to flee to Costa Rica. All right. Now let's go to the third and last step. And this is what I call developing personal forensic vision. PFV. Right? So to solidify a general view like that, like we just talked about, hey, it's not me that makes people lie, cheat, steal, neglect. It's them. They just have that general view to support it and solidify it. You have to develop a specific understanding of the person and the situation in question. What do I mean by that? Well, let's take the guy that we're talking about. Let's take our hero here. His wife I go talk to his wife. Let's say his wife comes in my office and she accepts, she's already passed the fact. She goes, I didn't cause him to cheat. She's already pushed the coin away. It's out of her hands. It's on the table. What I want her to do is drop that coin in his pocket where it belongs. So to do that, she has to develop a crystal clear vision of his values and beliefs and exactly who he is. So what do we know about this guy? Well, I would say, based on what he told me, that our hero of the story here, this guy, this loser, he believes that sexual gratification is a must. You have to have it regardless of situation. And he has to have his sexual tension relieved. And he's willing to lie and use, because this girl, he probably told her, he probably didn't give her a real name. He probably didn't give her his real name. This is pre-internet, pre-social media. And he probably conned her into thinking they were an item. He was going to stay. He was in love. I mean, that's what the song was saying. He was proclaiming his love for her. He didn't love her. He's got low impulse control. And he's also aware that this personality trait of his, this value that you got to have it and you get it at any cost, is not a particularly attractive relationship value. So I guarantee you he was willing to lie and disguise his true character to his wife to keep her happy and keep her believing that he had different values. He wasn't going to walk up to her and go, honey, listen, I'm gone for a week and I got to have it. So you're just going to have to put up with me cheating. And when I get home, if you take care of me, I won't cheat. If I get sex every night or twice or whatever, whatever it is, I don't know, he's probably 30-something years old. I don't know what his drive was. Then I won't cheat. He's not going to tell her that. He's not going to tell her that. So what I would tell her to do is, okay, listen, you've already pushed the coin back. Now you put it in his pocket. I want you to develop a clear vision of who this guy you're married to is. I want you to see him as he truly is, without any filters, because that's what takes the coin off the center of the table between the two of you and puts it in his pocket. And then you're free. And then, and only then, can you decide, when you figured out who this guy really is, whether you want to stay married to him or not. Right? This is certifying to the other person's individuality. You're giving them complete responsibility for who they are. And this is a complete transformation of the childhood narcissism that creates codependence. It's reflecting who the other person truly is, not making it your own reflection. So only doing this will you be able to be free to see people as they are and know how to react to them. So if somebody told me that they were struggling with their mom or dad. I had somebody recently that was very upset. Their parent was an alcoholic. And I'm like, well, look, before they were debating how much responsibility they want to take for it. And I'm like, well, I think you got to figure out who they are. I mean, they kind of knew they shouldn't take responsibility. They were a pretty smart person, pretty smart in the process. I said, you got to figure out who they are. You're going to have to become crystal clear and very, very get that forensic vision, that personal forensic vision of who your parents are, so that you know what you could have reasonably expected from them and what you can expect from them in the future. Right? This is the way it goes, and there's a freedom in this. There's a freedom in it. People have asked me if I'm affected by my own childhood. No therapist has a 2-parent home that's great. Let me just tell you. I mean, I know lots of therapists, and none of us, you wouldn't get into this business if you were like this. You grew up in the Leave It to Beaver home. You wouldn't know what to do with people who didn't. My response is, I accepted a long time ago who my parents were, and I didn't take responsibility for them. I knew that there was a difference between who they were and who I was. And that is a big step in your personal mental health. Because if you don't go through these steps and give the coin back, and you're going to carry that coin around the rest of your life. I have literally had people sit in my office who are near 60 years old who said, I will always feel like human trash because my mother didn't love me or my father rejected me. What? You're going to pronounce that kind of doom on yourself? Because they've taken so much for so many years, taken responsibility and believed it was them, it's set in concrete. So don't let it set in concrete. What I want you to do is learn these first two sides of the coin backwards and forwards and know how they apply to your life, and then re-listen to this one if you have to. Give that coin back. Be free of this crippling, depressive trait, a depressive way of looking at relationships that's distorted and poisonous. If somebody's giving you this coin, because this guy, I guarantee you, didn't go home and told his wife, he said, I didn't cheat because it's your fault I cheated. I mean, they're not going to want to take the coin. You're going to have to be sure that you can give it to them. So listen, I appreciate you. I probably ran over, but important. Felt like I needed to. Hope that didn't wear you out. So again, if you buy books on Amazon, I'm not trying to monetize this little recording here, but I've got Toxic Words, 20 Things You Never Say to Yourself on Amazon. And if you want a copy, fire away. And I got another book coming out soon on consequence-based parenting. I'll be releasing that in a month or two. But until then, I appreciate you listening. And as I always say, on signing off, keep your thoughts clear, straight, and true. Until next time, Mark Underwood signing off the Comfortable Couch. Thank you very much for being with me. Bye. Don't stop trying now. Right.